The hall was carved from black stone, bigger than any stadium on Earth. High above, the ceiling disappeared into shadows. Around the wide circular table sat the most feared creatures from across the galaxy, the warlords of Deathworlds, worlds where the air burned, oceans boiled, and life fought for every breath. Titans of their kind, murder beasts that ruled by claw and cannon, and for the first time in history, humans had been invited. At first, no one believed it. Why would they want humans? Earth was young by galactic standards, messy, still figuring out faster than light. Travel. The Council had always looked at humans like little kids playing in a battlefield. Some laughed, some warned against it. But in the end, curiosity won. They sent her. Captain Rhea Morgan. She didn't look like much compared to the others. She was just a human. A woman standing maybe 5'5", wearing a simple black tactical uniform. No heavy armor like the Vrothans with their blood metal suits. No venom glands like the Sulkar Lords. No claws, no wings, no psionic powers. Just a human, breathing the same heavy, poisoned air as all of them without a filter. They noticed that. The chairman, a massive slug-like being covered in spiked armor, hissed into a mic. "Human, Earthling, state your purpose." Rhea stepped forward, voice calm but sharp like a blade. "You invited us, we're here to listen, and if necessary, to respond." Laughter echoed across the chamber. Deep, rumbling laughter. A six-eyed beast from Jakaroth slammed its fist down, cracking the stone table. "You respond?" It roared. "Your species barely survived your own homeworld. You fight each other for scraps, you poison your seas, you cut your forests. You are not fit to sit among Deathworlders." Another voice, slick and oily, floated up. A venomous creature, with dozens of tendrils, leaned forward. "We considered exterminating your kind before you evolved too far. We still can." The threat hung in the air. It wasn't just words, they meant it. This wasn't some political meeting. It was a warning, a final chance to bow or be destroyed. Rhea's hand twitched slightly toward her belt, but she didn't reach for her weapon. Instead, she smiled, a slow, knowing smile that made even the ancient warlords shift uncomfortably in their thrones. "You think we're weak," she said, her voice carrying easily across the hall. "Because you see our wars, our mistakes, our blood. You see chaos and assume it means failure, that we're broken." She stepped forward again. Her boots made soft clicks against the cracked stone. "But you're wrong. It's our chaos that made us strong. It's because we tear ourselves apart that we learn to survive, to adapt, to win." The hall grew quieter. Some shifted, some glared. A few leaned in, curious despite themselves. "You talk about Deathworlds," Rhea continued, her voice growing harder, sharper. "You brag about the monsters your planets breed, the storms you survive, the wars you fight." She paused, then smiled again, a cold, almost pitying smile. "Earth is the only Deathworld that made its own monsters." The Council stirred uneasily. Rhea knew they didn't understand Earth the way Earthlings did. They thought survival was about strength, about being the biggest or the meanest. They didn't realize humans didn't survive by being the strongest. They survived by being the most dangerous thinkers, the ones who turned every disadvantage into a weapon. She tapped her temple lightly. "We invented weapons to kill from across oceans, machines that can wipe out cities, viruses engineered to bring down empires. We didn't wait for nature to test us. We tested ourselves over and over until we became the predators we needed." To be silenced now, thick and heavy, "And now," she said, voice dropping to a dangerous whisper, "you invited us here, into your council, into your home." She looked around at them, beasts and monsters, killers and kings, and she smiled one last time. "You made the same mistake every conqueror in human history made. You underestimated what a desperate human can do. Something ancient and primal shifted in the room. A low vibration through the floor. The Deathworlders, for the first time in centuries, felt something unfamiliar crawl up their spines. Fear. No one spoke. Not at first. The creatures who ruled planets, who shredded armies without mercy, just stared at the small human standing in the center of their grand hall. And then, of course, someone decided to test her. A tall, skeletal figure rose from its seat. Its bones were plated in dark iron, its fingers like needles. This was a Crexian, a race so feared that even the council rarely challenged them. It moved with unnatural speed, closing the distance between itself and Rhea in a blink. It didn't announce its challenge. It didn't roar or threaten, it just moved. A silent, deadly strike, aimed straight for Rhea's throat. The human barely shifted her weight. When the Crexian's arm lashed out, Rhea sidestepped like she was dancing, graceful, effortless. She grabbed the creature's wrist mid-air, and in one smooth, brutal motion, twisted it until the sound of snapping bone echoed across the chamber. The Crexian screeched a high, ugly sound, but Rhea didn't stop. She spun low, swept its legs, and slammed the monster face first into the stone floor. Hard, enough that cracks spiderwebbed out from the impact point. Gasps rippled through the council. Rhea stood over the twitching Crexian, her chest rising and falling steady as a drumbeat. She didn't gloat. She didn't smile. She just looked back up at the council, her voice cutting through the shock like a blade. "This was mercy," she said. "Try harder, and you won't get another chance." For a moment, no one moved. Then, a slow, heavy clap echoed across the hall. From the far side of the room, a monstrous figure rose, twice the height of a human, coated in thick scales, eyes burning with cold intelligence. This was Varzoon, warlord of Drach, a Deathworld so savage even its oceans were carnivorous. Varzoon's people were ancient, undefeated for millennia. "You speak of survival," Varzoon rumbled, his voice shaking the floor. "But what is humanity's gift to the galaxy? Chaos? Destruction? You bring war wherever you go." Rhea didn't flinch. She didn't deny it. "We bring change," she said. "Sometimes war is the only way to break chains." Murmurs spread like wildfire. Some nodded, some sneered. Others, the older, more cautious ones, leaned forward realizing something terrible. Humans didn't come to beg for a seat at the table. They came to claim it. Varzoon narrowed his eyes. "Prove it. Not with words. With blood." A wall slid, open on the side of the hall. A giant arena revealed itself, a pit of cracked stone and smoking vents. Death had been soaked into that ground 1,000 times over. Rhea didn't hesitate. She stepped into the pit. Above her, banners dropped. Down from the ceiling, one for each Deathworld present. Skulls, talons, burning suns, symbols of terror and pride. The rules were simple: survive, win, or die. The first challenger dropped from a balcony, a massive centaur-like beast with 4 arms, each holding a different weapon: axe, blade, chain, spear. The council watched, eager now. Blood was the language they understood best. Rhea stood perfectly still until the centaur beast charged, hooves pounding like war drums. At the last moment she moved, faster than any of them expected. She ducked the first swing, rolled under the second, and came up close. Too close for the creature's heavy weapons to matter. Humans weren't built for pure strength. They were built for precision, for cleverness, for brutality learned from millions of years of clawing up from the mud. Rhea pulled a small, almost invisible blade from her belt and slashed under the centaur's armored ribs, the soft spot. Blood, thick and black, sprayed across the sand. The creature roared in rage, swinging wildly, but Rhea was already behind it, a second strike cutting its hamstring. The centaur collapsed, screaming. She ended it with a clean, efficient stab to the throat. No theatrics, no cruelty, just business. The council was silent again, but it was a different kind of silence now. A respectful one. A fearful one. Rhea wiped the blade clean and looked up at them. "You wanted a demonstration," she said, voice steady. "You wanted to see what humanity brings to a Deathworld summit." She spread her arms wide. "Welcome to the new era." Above her, for the first time in history, the banners of Earth unfurled among the Deathworlders. For a few moments the council sat frozen, struggling to process what they'd just witnessed. Not because a human had won. They expected death. They celebrated it. But because of how Rhea had won. Clean, smart, merciless, and without a flicker of doubt. Humans weren't just survivors, they were predators. Varzoon broke the silence first. His claws tapped rhythmically against the stone as he spoke, almost thoughtfully. Perhaps we underestimated Earth's children. A few Deathworlders murmured in agreement. A few others glared openly. No council had ever been shifted by a single outsider before, let alone one from such a young species. It was a humiliation. An insult written in blood across their sacred ground. The chairman's voice slithered across the hall again. You fought well, human, but a single battle proves nothing. Survival is not strength. Strength is endurance. He gestured toward the walls, and massive gates began to grind open. From the darkness beyond the arena, a roar shattered the air. A real roar, deep, furious, earth-shaking. Even some of the seasoned warlords leaned back slightly, uneasy. The chairman smiled, revealing hundreds of razor-thin teeth. We call it the World Eater, he said. It was bred from the bloodlines of 7 Deathworld apex predators. Even our greatest champions could not tame it. A shadow moved into the light. It was huge, taller than a skyscraper. Its skin was armored, in bone-like plates. Its mouth split into 4 jaws, each dripping venom that sizzled where it landed. Its eyes burned like twin suns, and it was looking straight at Rhea. The other Deathworlders expected fear, panic, begging even. That's what most species did when faced with the World Eater. But Rhea smiled. It wasn't madness, it wasn't stupidity. It was something far more dangerous. It was calculation. Back on Earth, humans didn't become top predators by being the biggest or fastest or strongest. They did it by being the smartest animals in every room. They learned, they adapted, they used everything at their disposal. Rhea knelt quickly and scooped up a handful of arena dust, rolling it through her fingers, studying it. She was thinking, fast. The World Eater charged, its roar making the ground shake. It moved like an avalanche. No hesitation, no mercy. But Rhea was already moving too. She sprinted toward the side of the arena, not away from the beast, but toward it, angling to the left. At the last possible second, she threw herself into a dive, sliding under one of the arena's cracked stone pillars. The World Eater, blinded by rage, struck the pillar head-on. The explosion was deafening. Dust and rock flew everywhere. The creature stumbled, dazed, momentarily confused by its own power. Rhea didn't stop. She darted from pillar to pillar, baiting it, using its size against it. Every time it lunged, she made it smash into another structure, weakening itself. Humans didn't fight fair. Humans fought to win. Above the arena, a few council members leaned in, fascinated despite themselves. This is not survival, hissed the Solkar Lord, his tendrils twitching nervously. This is strategy. Strategy born of desperation, murmured another. The most dangerous kind. Finally, when the World Eater was panting, bleeding from dozens of self-inflicted wounds, Rhea made her move. She sprinted up a broken slab of stone, using it as a ramp, and launched herself onto the creature's neck. The World Eater thrashed, trying to throw her off, but she held on with a strength born from Earth's brutal gravity, its endless wars, its generations of survivors. In one swift, brutal motion, Rhea drew a small device from her belt, a magnetic explosive. She slapped it against a thin seam in the creature's armored plates and kicked off its back, flipping through the air. She hit the ground rolling just as the device detonated. The explosion wasn't massive. It didn't need to be. It was smart. Targeted, precise. The World Eater staggered once, then toppled like a mountain breaking apart, its roar dying into a whimper. Dead. The arena was silent, except for the ringing echoes of the blast. Slowly, Rhea stood, dusted herself off, and turned to face the council. No boasting. No celebration. Just that same cold, knowing stare. The Deathworlders, monsters who had laughed at the idea of human strength, now saw the truth. Humans didn't need to be monsters. They were worse. They were something that could think like, pray and kill like gods. Rhea stood alone in the center of the blood-stained arena, the body of the World Eater steaming behind her. She could feel the eyes of every warlord, every elder, every so-called apex predator burning into her back, watching her, weighing her, and most importantly, fearing her. It was a beautiful thing, fear. Humans knew it better than anyone. They had lived under its thumb for thousands of years, and then they learned how to weaponize it. The chairman rose slowly from his throne. His voice echoed through the great hall, twisted with a mix of anger and awe. You have proven your strength, Earthling, against beasts, against warriors, against death itself. He slithered forward until he loomed above Rhea, his grotesque body pulsing with restrained hatred. But you are still just one human, one anomaly. Humanity itself is chaos, unbound. You are termites eating the bones of your own world. He bared his razor-thin teeth. You cannot be trusted. Rhea tilted her head slightly as if considering. Then she smiled, a slow, patient, dangerous smile. You're right, she said softly. We are chaos. She took a step forward. The chairman twitched, but did not move. But here's what you don't understand, she continued, her voice rising so the entire council could hear. Chaos isn't weakness. It's evolution. It's adaptation. It's unpredictability. We aren't just survivors of our world's brutality. We thrived in it. She spread her arms slightly as if embracing the madness of her own words. You think you can control us, threaten us, break us, but you're wrong. You brought a match to a wildfire. Rhea's wrist beeped once, almost lazily. Hidden among the folds of her uniform, a small transmitter flashed green. At that exact moment, across the galaxy, hidden human ships that had been cloaked in deep orbit above the Deathworld councils. Home planet decloaked, hundreds of them, each bristling with weaponry designed not to conquer, but to erase. Humans didn't build grand empires like the others. Humans built solutions. Instantly, alarms screamed through the hall. Holograms flashed overhead. Hundreds of human vessels, smaller, leaner, deadlier, hovering over the planet like vultures over a dying beast. The Deathworlders, who had spent centuries ruling by terror and strength, now found themselves surrounded by something worse, a species that planned for betrayal, a species that smiled while the knife was already in your back. The chairman turned back to Rhea, his voice trembling with barely restrained rage. You dare to threaten the Council of Deathworlds? Rhea's smile didn't falter. I don't need to threaten you, she said. I just need you to listen. The council stirred. Weapons were drawn. Powers crackled. Claws scraped the stone floors, but they hesitated, because for the first time they realized something horrifying. If this was just one human, standing calm and fearless against all of them, what would an entire planet of her kind do? Rhea stepped closer to the chairman, standing almost nose to nose despite the height difference. We came here to offer respect, she said, to build something new. But if you refuse, if you think you can treat humanity like prey, she leaned in even closer, her voice dropping to a whisper that cut sharper than any blade. Then you'll learn what happens when the monsters you tried to cage break free. Behind her, the holograms showed human ships powering up their weapons, still silent, still waiting for the word. The Deathworlders, conquerors of entire solar systems, hesitated, and in that hesitation, Rhea saw the shift, the fear becoming understanding, the anger twisting into something bitter and heavy, respect not given, taken. The council chamber, once so proud and untouchable, now felt like a tomb, heavy, breathless. The ancient Deathworlders who had ruled through terror for centuries were caught between two impossible choices: surrender their pride or face extinction, at the hands of a species they once mocked. For a long, terrible moment no one spoke, no one moved. Then Varzun, the massive scaled warlord of Dra, rose from his throne. The entire hall seemed to tense at once. Varzun was a legend, undefeated, worshipped as a living god by his people. If anyone would choose violence, it would be him. He stared down at Rhea for what felt like an eternity, and then he knelt. 1. Giant clawed fist struck the stone floor in a warrior's bow, his head lowered in a gesture of hard-earned respect. Not submission, no, Varzun was no slave. It was something even rarer, acknowledgement. Others shifted in their seats. Murmurs rippled through the council. Pride battled with survival in every mind. Slowly, like dominoes falling, others began to rise and bow. The Sulkar Lord, the Krenth sisters, even the venomous needle-fingered Crexian who Rhea had broken earlier. Not all bowed, of course. Some left, slinking into the shadows of the galaxy, nursing hatred and planning revenge. Humanity would have new enemies now, smarter, angrier enemies, but the Council itself, the core of Deathworld power, had spoken. The chairman hissed, furious but cornered. He had no choice but to lift a trembling hand and lower his ancient crest, the Deathworlder's symbol of truce. The human ships above, still hovering like vultures, held their fire. Rhea exhaled slowly, not from relief, from control. Everything had gone exactly as planned. She looked around the hall, making eye contact with each and every warlord. No fear, no apologies. Just a cold, clear promise humanity was here to stay. The chairman forced out the words through gritted teeth. Earth will be granted full status among the Deathworld summit, with all rights and protections. Rhea nodded once, sharp and crisp. Good, she said simply, because whether you wanted us or not, we're already part of this galaxy. She turned on her heel and began walking toward the exit, the massive doors creaking open ahead of her. Behind her, the Deathworlders watched in silence. They saw not a diplomat, not a warrior. They saw the beginning of a new age, one ruled not by the biggest or the strongest or even the deadliest, but by the species who understood one simple, horrifying truth. In the game of survival, it wasn't the monster who won. It was the monster who learned to think. As Rhea stepped out into the black skies of the Deathworld's capital, she tapped her wrist once. The human ships acknowledged the signal, retracting their weapons and pulling back into stealth formations. War had been avoided today, but every soul present knew something deeper, something colder, if it ever came again. If the galaxy ever pushed too far, they wouldn't just be fighting humanity, they'd be fighting evolution itself.